The people of Paisley have this evening been remembering one of the worst tragedies in Scottish modern times. 75 years ago, on Hogmanay, 71 children died in the town's Glen Cinema.
Hundreds of children panicked when they wrongly thought a fire had started in the picture house. Those who died were suffocated and crushed to death. Alan Mackay has been with a torchlight procession commemorating the victims. Alan.
Yes, Sally, I'm at Paisley Abbey, of course, a religious place rich in its own history, dating back over 800 years. But tonight's procession, lantern procession around the town of Paisley, was very much about remembering that tragic loss of young life that you were speaking of at the Glen Cinema. And among the congregation at tonight's special act of remembrance and service here at the Abbey, which is now well underway, are families and survivors of that night, Hogmanay 1929, who can remember the tragedy all too well.
I think everybody's mind tonight will be on the children that are not here.
81-year-old Betty Waples, who'll tell the survivor's story in tonight's service, will recall a life she might not have had.
When I think back in my life, I wouldn't have my son and daughter, I wouldn't have my grandchildren, I wouldn't have my great-grandchildren. That's what the other people all missed.
The house was thronging with youngsters. Remember, going to the pictures was very new. Scotland's worst cinema disaster was caused by a stampede from a combination of panic as smoke billowed from the projection room and locked doors to the cinema itself.
I can close my eyes and I can see it. You can see the smoke, the people coming off the balcony, the crowds rushing up and down. And if it hadn't been for my brother, I don't think I'd be here, because he made me sit still until the crowd went away, and then we got up and to find a way out.
Created as a temperance hall, it became a cinema, but is now a furniture store. Just a plaque left to recall the tragedy which affected so many families and Paisley itself, but also led to major changes in the law, making a trip to the cinema safer.
Nowadays, all doors and places like that all open out, and that was a direct result of the Glen Cinema disaster, because the emergency doors there opened in and they couldn't get them open. They were locked at the kiddies couldn't get them open.
An arts group who are staging tonight's act of remembrance want to restore the cinema as a museum and venue. They're still some way off bidding for funds, as they first try to enlist council support in creating a business plan for the project. But that's very much for the future, and I think tonight the thoughts of everyone at the service here will be about those who didn't survive the Glen Cinema tragedy. Indeed, just shortly before we came on air, a survivor did come up to me and told me that he was able to name the young 6-year-old girl in the tenement flat below him who had died, and on the other hand an older teenager who'd bravely saved many lives by taking many of the younger children into a side room of the cinema as the stampede became worse. And I think those are very much the thoughts that will be in the minds of the congregation here at this famous place of sanctuary, just literally 100 yards away from the scene of the tragedy.
Alan Mackay at Paisley Abbey, thank you very much.
Now, it seems the number of people participating